Welcome to Wabanaki Today. I'm your host, Donna Loring. Given the horrible publicity the state of Maine has received because of another rage-filled meltdown by Governor LePage, I wanted to get the perspective of Penobscot Nation Chief Kirk Francis. Just to quickly recap the events of the past week and a half, Governor LePage lost his temper when he thought he was called a racist. He left a message on Representative Gattin's answering machine on Thursday, August 25th.
Mr. Gattin, this is Governor Paul LePage. I would like to talk to you about your comments about my being a racist, you cocksucker. And I want to talk to you. I want you to prove that I'm a racist. I've spent my life helping black people, and you little son of a bitch, socialist cocksucker, I need you to, I want you to record this and make it public because I'm after you. Thank you.
After he was called to task for that by many Maine citizens and members of his own party, he held a press conference, and he stepped in it further when he said, and I quote, "A bad guy is a bad guy. I don't care what color he is. When you go to war, if you know the enemy dresses in red, and you dress in blue. You shoot at red. You shoot at the enemy. You try to identify the enemy, and the enemy right now, the overwhelming majority of people coming in are people of color or people of Hispanic origin." End of quote. Is he saying what I think he's saying? People of color are the enemy and should be shot? Given all the attention and media on this event, I thought it only right that we hear from a Maine native voice, which we haven't heard from so far. I decided to have a brief chat with Penobscot Nation Chief Kirk Francis. Chief Francis, welcome, and tell me what's your perspective on this latest mental meltdown by the governor.
You know, when you look at the issue, it is just another chapter in a long history of this governor's tenure of minimizing several groups of people and also, you know, kind of blaming Maine's most vulnerable people for epidemic level problems that exist. We see them in our community, we see them everywhere else. But when you start to point a finger at a certain demographic of people, especially people of color, when you talk about the African American community, Hispanics, Native Americans, whoever that is, I think it's also very dangerous. So if you look at the history of kind of these comments that have come out of that office, you have very early on in his tenure the ability to feel empowered to say things like telling organizations like the NAACP to, you know, kiss his butt. Also, you know, minimizing effects of chemicals on women. All of those things really lead to sending a message to the general public that that group of people don't matter as much. And this latest conversation around Muslims, around, you know, all of that, it's just, it sets an attitude within the state that people of color, minorities are the problem. And really, in many aspects, they're Maine's most vulnerable people in these subject matters. It's obviously not great leadership. It's, and as you said, you know, Maine's been in the news for all the wrong reasons. You know, I travel a lot nationally, and it's the subject of a whole host of problems that it's causing the state in terms of us getting any level of respect. And so, as a Maine citizen, first of all, you know, it's really concerning to be subject to that. And secondly, I think it just leads to a level of instability that it brings to the governor's office and to the state of Maine, and so it's very concerning. The bottom line is that, you know, when we talk about good, strong leadership, you know, I think these examples are not just isolated. It's not one specific thing. It's basically a whole body of work around these concerns that have gone on for the last 5 or 6 years. So I think legislative leadership really has to take a long, hard look at how they want Maine portrayed, how they want to bring dignity back to the government, and build trust in an already distrustful environment. We see it in the presidential race among American citizens, and certainly see it in Maine. So, so I think, you know, they have to figure out a way to take action and stop this from happening. I think that the danger, as you know, in tribal politics, we have our views, and we tend to align ourselves with a party or candidates that share those views and that we feel we can be productive with. But I mean, if I'm the legislative leadership on that side of the aisle, I think my concern is the trickle-down effect on candidates throughout this election. You know, if the party doesn't take action against something that's clearly our actions of instability within the office, you know, it's going to reflect on every candidate, and I'm sure there's some good ones, and could have a multitude of negative effects on candidates that are seen to be aligned with that party, therefore the governor. So the elections are really becoming about, and you're seeing this with a guy like Donald Trump getting the nomination for the Republican Party. People aren't talking about the issues. They're not talking about the critical things that are facing the country, and certainly we're not talking about those things in this state now. All we're talking about is this behavior. These candidates are really pandering to this sentiment. Anybody running on a platform, I'm not a politician, I don't do these things, therefore you should elect me. I'd rather have people that have institutional knowledge, that understand government, and I think this is what you get when you don't do that. You have people that don't see the value in building relationships, don't see the value in respecting everyone and representing everyone, and that's kind of where we are, and it's too bad. Yeah, that's right. I think, you know, and that's also the problem. I mean, when you talk about gridlock within Congress, or the inability of the state legislature to get along, or whatever it is, that all comes from when somebody runs on a platform that I'm an outsider, I'm not going to be a politician, I'm not going to do these things. Once they're in office, they have to live by that. And that just lends itself to not creating the relationships, not finding compromise and common ground, and as you know, that's how legislative processes work, and that's how governments work. There's a practical reality as to how things work, and no one person can do that by themselves. What concerns me about it is that as a Maine citizen, and all Native Americans have gone through in this state in terms of trying to have their rights respected, trying to have our self-governing authority respected, trying to create relationships based on that, and then to have the highest office in this state pointing fingers at minorities and other vulnerable populations as the problem really tells me there's just no plan to cure it. We're just going to blame people that have the least political effect on me. And so that's no way to govern, and I think it's unstable. I don't. I mean, I think that if it's anything that he's shown over the past few years with, we've seen this kind of erratic behavior for simply trying to invoke our federal protections where he just says, okay, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. We're not going to recognize your sovereignty. And even though we did it at first, we're going to revoke those mechanisms that allow for good conversation and consultation. And so if anything he's proven is that he's going to say what he wants and he's going to do what he wants. And at the end of the day, he's going to stand by it and he's not going to apologize for it. So I would be very shocked if he does step down on his own. Well, I think he should seriously consider that. I mean, I think it's become very obvious that he's either extremely overwhelmed in the position or simply cannot control his emotions to the point where we've seen recently, you don't call up other elected officials and say those things to people. And I don't know where a leader at my level, at his level, or any other leader in the state that's elected to represent people gets to a place where you think that's okay. I will say, that no matter what you felt about people's politics over the years in this state, whether it's been, Muskie, Margaret Chase Smith, even Susan Collins, Olympia Snow, all of them, I mean, we don't always agree politically and we don't always agree philosophically, but you don't see this type of behavior. As a matter of fact, you see people from Maine in leadership ascending to secretaries of state, leading special envoys to address humanitarian issues, very well respected, and now, our state is being looked at as some kind of laughingstock. It's all coming from a very specific office, and that can be dealt with and needs to be dealt with. I mean, before it hurts a lot of good leaders in this state and also continues to damage the state until nobody pays attention to us anymore. I don't think it helps the tribes. I think it sends a message that we're not going to ever be able to get this relationship back on track with those types of attitudes. And as you know, the tribe is committed to that and trying to find solutions to that. But I think, what it does do is puts the entire state in a position of nationally not being able to get the level of respect it deserves. So in terms of hurting the tribes, I think, what hurts the tribes is this type, threatening to bring the National Guard in on what we believe is a core basic sovereign fishing right, when you threaten to just no longer talk, when we're getting sued over our ancestral river and forced territorial removal on top of that, and you see no intervention or opportunity for conversation, it just tells you that. And I will say this, it's not exclusive to Native Americans, as we know. I mean, this doesn't seem to be a group of people that they're not willing to attack out of that office. And I don't know the governor personally. I've met with him maybe twice since he's been in office. So I see what everybody else does. And I just think that, without getting into is he a racist, is he not a racist, all of those things. And like I said, I don't know him, but I know that the behavior is unsuitable for somebody at that level. I do. I think that relationships are everything. One of the things that I've learned over my time here is that whether it's internally with the tribal council, whether it's with the administration, whether it's with Congress, the United States, Maine people, coalitions in Maine, it is critically important. The only way you send a message to people like that is through constituency and through relationships. And The more people that develop these relationships and develop these kind of common issues and go after them together, the much more effective it is. I'd just like to say that my only reason for talking about this is because this is how tribal people have been feeling for a long time. And I think it's an opportunity for us in Maine citizens to talk about this issue, to talk about what it feels like to have institutions putting their foot on your neck and also at the same time blaming you for the problem. This is not new to us. We've been the target of this many, many times. I think Maine people are starting to see what that feels like or to know what that feels like now with all of this going on. And I don't know a person I've talked to that just doesn't feel appalled by it. I thought there were many lines that had been crossed way over a long time ago. This latest thing, if that doesn't bring on some form of sanctions or recommended removal or action to remove or something, I'm not sure what type of behavior will ever be held accountable. And it sends a message to leaders that you can act however you want and there'll be no ramifications for that.